When a digital smart contract executes, it happens instantaneously. The code reads the input, verifies the condition, and locks in a real-world consequence. There is no appeal, no delay, and no room for interpretation. This mechanism forms the architecture of agentic governance. While current AI models typically advise human operators, agentic systems are granted the authority to act. They autonomously manage budgets, execute regulations, and levy penalties without a human in the loop. This binary logic is the microscopic foundation of the system. If a specific parameter is met, the system deploys a predetermined output. In a vacuum, this logic is flawless. For isolated tasks, processing predictable data through a rigid gate ensures perfect consistency. This is the core appeal for Silicon Valley: the total eradication of human bias, hesitation, and administrative error. The rules are applied exactly as written, every single time. Success at this microscopic scale does not guarantee stability for the entire social contract. Scaling this rigidity up to manage a nation introduces a different class of structural risk. This technological ambition is the digital resurrection of King Hammurabi's 1772 BCE stone stele. The immutable ledger of a smart contract serves as the modern version of that ancient, unyielding law. It operates on the core assumption of ancient Chinese legalism. The philosopher Han Feizi argued that because humans are inherently selfish, order can only be maintained through a rigid system of automated rewards and punishments. It also attempts to realize Plato's philosopher king, a ruler whose decisions are guided by pure, unbiased logic, rather than the shifting whims of the masses. By coding these ideals into software, we are attempting to build Plato's king using the enforcement mechanisms of ancient legalism. In this regime, the state operates with zero friction. The code is the law, and the law is mathematically enforced. But expanding these rigid parameters into macro governance creates a catastrophic collision between immutable code and the chaotic reality of human society. Scaling laws in physics dictate that physical properties change as an object grows. A structure stable at the size of an insect will collapse under its own weight if scaled up to the size of an elephant. In controlled environments, we see linear scaling. Outputs move in direct proportion to inputs. Doubling the force applied to an object results in a predictable doubling of its speed. Human societies do not follow linear paths. They are governed by nonlinear dynamics and chaos theory. Small changes do not produce small effects. They trigger complex, unpredictable chain reactions. This sensitivity to initial conditions is the butterfly effect. A microscopic disturbance in one part of the system can fundamentally alter outcomes on the other side of the globe. During an unforeseen black swan event, like a pandemic, a rigid smart contract programmed to execute countrywide automated tax levies would trigger a systemic collapse. It would drain capital at the exact moment the system requires liquidity. Algorithms cannot compute the unquantifiable variable of human context during a sudden crisis. Human society is a fluid, chaotic entity. Governing it through an unyielding digital stone slab ignores the fundamental physics of the state. This friction is even more pronounced in international relations. The realist framework established by John Mearsheimer explains how states navigate a world where survival is never guaranteed. The baseline rule of international politics is that nations operate on a trust but verify basis. In a landscape of constant security competition, rivals inherently distrust each other's motives. This contrasts with domestic politics, where the public generally trusts their own leaders to protect them from external threats. Because of this trust, leaders have access to a tool Mearsheimer calls the strategic lie. Unlike selfish lies told for personal gain, these are deceptions told because the leader believes they are necessary for the country's survival. Agentic systems are designed for algorithmic consistency. They lack the human capacity for intentional strategic deception. On this matrix, the AI is pinned to the truth quadrant, unable to navigate the gray zones of statecraft. Eliminating deception sounds like a moral victory, but it strips the state of the elasticity required to navigate an existential crisis. The most critical use of this elasticity is the noble lie, a strategic deception used to prevent a catastrophe when the public cannot handle the nuanced truth. To peacefully resolve the Cuban Missile Crisis, President Kennedy secretly agreed to remove American missiles from Turkey. He lied to the public, claiming no such trade occurred, to protect the deal from being politically destroyed at home. If Kennedy had been replaced by an AI enforcing absolute transparency, the trade would have been exposed immediately. The deal would have collapsed, and nuclear war would likely have followed. This same tool can be used for fear-mongering, where leaders manipulate public trust by inflating distant threats to justify preventive wars. Before the invasion of Iraq, the Bush administration waged a multi-year deception campaign to convince the public that Saddam Hussein possessed weapons of mass destruction. These strategic lies often result in blowback, poisoning the domestic culture of trust, or backfiring, where the resulting policy leads to a long-term failure. An AI prevents the disaster of the fear-mongering lie, but it also eliminates the life-saving grace of the noble lie. The loss of strategic deception is a fatal vulnerability in a chaotic world. The rigid nature of algorithmic justice forces us to reconsider the overarching social contract between the governed and the governing. Under pure algorithmic rule, justice is deterministic and relentlessly punitive. If the code is triggered, the penalty is applied without exception. But real-world governance requires managing edge cases where state survival depends on breaking the rules. A leader must have the discretion to grant mercy or offer a pardon to maintain social cohesion. AI cannot compute mercy. To an unyielding algorithm, mercy is mathematically indistinguishable from corruption. Delegating the social contract to an algorithm removes the contextual elasticity that keeps a society from fracturing under pressure. Agentic governance achieves perfect efficiency at the microscopic level, but it guarantees catastrophic failure at the macroscopic level because reality is nonlinear. We have to stop viewing human traits like bias, empathy, and the capacity for strategic deception as bugs in the system of statecraft. These traits are the essential shock absorbers that allow the state to flex and bend under the pressure of unforeseen crises. The messiness of human discretion is not a defect in the social contract. It is the only thing keeping it intact.